Oh, there's the bell.
There it is.
Okay.
Wow. I'm overwhelmed, really. I apologize for the mask. I'm a real stickler because I have a 74-year-old at home who had open heart surgery, albeit many years ago, but it makes us a little more vulnerable. So I hope that you can put up with my mask. I just want to thank all of you for being here today. I want to thank all of our Zoom attendants. It's the first time I rang the bell as president. Wow.
Nice.
It's just so great to see everybody, and thank you for coming out, and thank you for abiding by the social distance guidelines. I just want to let you know that you're going to find me to be a bit of a stickler about requirements, because as a club, our liability insurance does not cover any COVID-related claim. Our RI has made that an exemption. So I will kind of be a stickler and ask that you all abide by the social distance guidelines so that we don't put the club at risk of any kind of lawsuit. So I appreciate that. Erica, you're going to start us off with inspiring words today.
Sounds good. Hello, everyone. Looks like you're gathered in a nice spot, and I look forward to seeing you all in person there at some point in the future as well. So I thought I'd set an inspiration around the first day of fall. In fact, it's actually the first hour of fall because the autumn equinox arrived at 11:31 Mountain Time. So here we are in another season, and the seasons have been passing with a bit of a unique aspect to them recently. It's true that many of our fall traditions, like tailgating, trick-or-treating, Oktoberfest, are either not happening or will happen in a significantly different way this year. And we're also looking to a winter where we're advised to maintain public health precautions. And though that is absolutely necessary, I know several share my feeling that it's getting to be a little bit of a drag. So I thought I'd inspire us to consider some ways that we can all continue to find purpose, momentum, joy, and connection. So here's just some thoughts to consider. Buy an outdoor space heater so you can socialize on your patio for a few months longer. Identify one thing in your home or office setup that drives you crazy and get it fixed. Do something that will make someone else's day brighter, which of course is really our purpose in Rotary, so I'm glad to have such a camaraderie in that. Plan a trip for a date in the future. Create a habit of sending cards or calling friends and family you haven't spoken with in a while. If over the last couple of months you've taken up walking, running, or cycling because your gym is closed, make sure you have clothing that can sustain your healthy habits through the winter. There's a saying that goes, there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing. So make your investment now so you can continue to get fresh air as the weather closes in. You could try a new exercise routine, maybe one you can do indoors when you don't want to go outside. Stock up on pumpkin spice flavored everything. Learn a new fall inspired recipe. Get a flu shot, and that's critically important to protect yourself against the flu, but also protect our society against lots of medical circumstances converging at once. Make an appointment to donate blood. That need is continuous, and while we aren't doing walk-ins, I don't think any organization is doing walk-ins. You can certainly call and make an appointment to donate blood. Identify something you want to learn more about and find an online class. There are many universities that have open source courses, and of course there's always YouTube. And finally, take time to consider the question, what can I cultivate now so that I can emerge brighter and bolder in the spring? And I'll close with just an observation. As we all know, both the fall and spring equinox mark the moment when the sun is aligned with the equator, giving us nearly equal parts day and night. The equinox can serve as a reminder that even as our attention has recently been drawn to intense and polarizing issues, ultimately our universe will always come back to balance.
Thank you so much, Erica. That was really appropriate. Thank
Great.
you. If you would please join Erica and I in the Pledge of Allegiance and the four-way test. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America,
and to
to the republic for which it stands,
one
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And in the things we think, say, and do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And we've added a fifth, to have some fun. And our club vision is to improve lives. Thank you. We do have one visiting Rotarian today. He's actually our Rotarian, but please welcome Ed Lewick. Ed has moved to Arizona part-time and has joined the Saddleback Noon Club. Did you tell me? Yep, there. So we're happy to have you back and enjoying Rotary with us while you're here. Thanks so much, Ed. Do we have any other guests?
So I'd like to introduce Stephen Krause, who is acting as our tech wizard today because one is not enough. So we were able to actually pull this together. But Stephen is also interested in joining a Rotary Club, and obviously this is the best one. So I wanted to welcome him for that. Do notice that if you want things to be audible over Zoom, you have to come to the microphone. We can't pass the microphone around. You have to come up here and talk. So that's what this mic is for. I would also like to welcome Gloria Cat from La Familia. And we've got a little presentation, and Tara Strebe from Teaching Tree.
Okay. Thank you, Carl. Welcome to our guests. We're so pleased to have you here today. And pleased to learn more about Rotary. Carl, do you have that video that I wanted to? So instead of why I joined Rotary today, I've been wanting to show this video, and because we have we have a tight agenda, I wanted to show this video instead. It is a video that talks about the education and literacy efforts that we do through Rotary International, and the part of how your funds are used when you're as a Paul Harris sustaining member and donating to the Rotary International Foundation. So I am ready for you to show that.
A single act of good can go a long way. It can cross oceans, cure disease, and create equality. As members of Rotary, we are people of action, and our actions have the power to speak loud and clear. Our vision and commitment to finding solutions keeps us connected to those who need it most, changing lives and creating opportunities with our groundbreaking work in education and literacy. There are more kids enrolled in school now than at any other point in human history, which is why supporting teachers is key. In classrooms, our innovative approach creates critical thinkers and big dreamers with the skills to achieve. Our global grants train teachers to use materials, new methods, and technology to inspire and energize students of all ages. We believe education has the power to lift families up, make real change, modify behavior, create healthy habits, and open minds. We believe that education creates security and safety in families so they can support, provide, and make informed, empowered decisions. Your contribution keeps students far and wide connected to a world of good. Every donation is an action that speaks volumes across classrooms, communities, and continents. Because the distance between an act of good and the lives it touches isn't as vast as you might imagine. Learn how you can support the cause that means the most to you.
Thank you. So I really want to share you know, often we get so tied up in our projects and just, you know, the routine of our meetings. And I think it's just important to reinforce all the good work that we do as Rotarians, not only here in our community, but throughout the world. So it's something that I hope to become part of our meetings on a regular basis. Curtis, as you just filled your mouth.
So I'd like to invite up Tara Street from Teaching Tree and Gloria Cat from La Familia. As most of you are aware, back at the beginning of July, myself and the sponsorship committee, mostly the sponsorship committee, came up with an idea to support some nonprofits here in our community, and the needs that we figured were the greatest at that time were childcare. With a lot of parents going back to work, we knew that the need for that was great. So we went out to the club, and no surprise to any of us, you guys, the club stepped up tremendously. Our goal was to raise $10,000 for both La Familia and Teaching Tree. And through the efforts, especially of Win Washley, he reached out to the Community Foundation of Northern Colorado. We were able to obtain dollars above and beyond that. Our club raised close to right about $60,000 for these efforts, and that includes $40,000 from the Community Foundation of Northern Colorado. So what we would like to do today is present a check to both Teaching Tree and La Familia in the amount of $20,000 each that they can use to support the needs that they deem greatest in each of their organizations. So I'll be right back. I know, yeah.
Sorry. So you can hear. You caught me off guard. I'm speechless. It's so much more than what we were expecting. So I'm gonna try not to cry right now. Thank you a million times. Thank you. This has been an adventure for us. As you know, we spoke to you guys last year because we were doubling our center. We went from 6 classrooms to 12. We just got finished doubling our employees. 2 weeks later, COVID hit. So it has been a huge, huge struggle. We've been keeping our heads above water. We're getting there. We're great. We actually went from 30 kids on May 11th when we opened back up to 204 kids that we have today just at our Fort Collins Center. And then we also have 50 at our Loveland Center. But so we've been working super hard trying to get everything ready. And luckily, knock on wood, we've had 0 COVID cases since May 11th. We have some pretty strict guidelines and with the health department's help in hiring extra teachers. So this money is going to be amazing for us. So thank you so much. And you guys are also going to help us do some gates for safety to help our kids keep safe out on the playground. So I just want to say thank you for that so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I'll use this one. Do you want to lower it?
Let's adjust it so and you're gonna have to sort of almost eat it.
I promise I'm standing up. This is just more than amazing. I am really honored to be here today and seeing all your faces and gathering here, even with all the restrictions that we all need to follow and observe. Just as the Teaching Tree, you know, we have faced a lot of challenges with the pandemic. But I'm proud to say that La Familia has served our community for 25 years now. This is our anniversary year, 25, making sure that kids are able to, you know, develop in a positive environment. We're committed to their safety. And the great idea about this fundraising is just so welcome from the bottom of our hearts and on behalf of the Family Center and the staff that are so dedicated. You know, these times are just like really weird. So we're committed to the safety of our children, and the money that you raised that we're receiving today is gonna help us to level up the playground and make sure that we build a very sturdy and safe fence for the kids to go out and play. So this is an improvement to our facility. So yeah, thank you so much. And this is amazing. Thank you from the bottom of our heart.
Thank you, Gloria and Tara, for being here today. It really is our honor to help your organizations because of the incredible work that you do in the community for our children. So important, and it was such a big need before the pandemic hit, and now more than ever, we know what an incredible burden is being placed on you all. So we're happy to help you. I also want to give a very sincere and warm thank you to all of our club members who donated to this cause and to bringing hope in times of crisis. We will be asking you for some other help as we go forward because there are so many great needs in our community, and we'll continue to look for creative ways in which we can leverage our own funds in terms of reaching out to the community. But thank you to all of you for your generosity, and thank you. All right, Vince, you get to tell us a joke.
Oh, wow. I'm so impressed with our club, really, on a serious note. Eric, I really appreciated your thoughts, but I'm a little reluctant to tell my wife about anything in the house that irritates her. I think that might create a dilemma for me, and I'd be sleeping in the garage. But talking about Anne, it was her birthday, and we've been really close these, you know, as all of us have these past 3, 4, 5 months. And it's her birthday, and I said, well, you know, this is kind of a special time. If you can think of something that you really want, I'll be more than happy to buy it. And she thought for a minute. She said, I want something shiny, and I want it small, and I want something that goes from 0 to 130 in 3 seconds. So I bought her a bathroom scale.
I just don't think you can top that one, Vince. Sorry.
I think that's it.
Oh my. I think that's really true for everybody right now during COVID. I don't know about you. I'm calling it the COVID-20. All right. Teams, you have some football pool results, yes? Sure, you can.
Okay, so Denise is not here today, so I am helping her out from the football pool standpoint. So just from a logistics standpoint on the money info side, Denise is asking just to send checks for if you're playing the full season, just send in $34 to Chris Otto, make the checks out to the Rotary, Foothills Rotary Charitable Foundation. If you want to write a check today, I can certainly collect that and drop that off for Chris as well too to go ahead and do that if you guys want to do that. There should be you should have sheets all over, and I can mail out, or we can have Denise mail out the pick sheets here in a little bit too. So so we'll get that going. Or if you like to just write a check for only the weeks you play, it's just $2 per week too, and so that works out great as well. And Denise is saying that you can even be invoiced, so that works as well. So second, week one results. So we had a tie for low scorer at 6 between Wynn Washley and Adam Hopkins. Wynn's tiebreaker was further away from the actual score, so you won, Wynn. Congratulations. And then Jeff Schoonover and Artie Bravoso tied for second with 9 correct. And Chuck Decker won week 1 with 12 right. So kind of an interesting season as it is. So, and then, yeah, and so basically just to your picks, I can email whichever ones you guys fill out here today. Otherwise, with the other pick sheets, like I said, I'll get those, figure out how to get those emailed out to everybody else and just send them to Denise's email. And remember to make sure to do it to the new one, not the one at Eide Bailey, but the one at comcast.net. And just get them in by Thursday. So that is all from that end. And I am the fine master today, so I might as well just stay up here and get that done while we're at it. So, first of all, I think it's kind of exciting to think that this is our first meeting, and to do fines in person is way more fun than doing it over Zoom, if I'm being very honest. So I thought we would make the theme of this. So the last time we were at the Marriott, to my best knowledge, was March 2nd. So that was a long time ago. So we're going to kind of do, if you've done any of these things since then, is kind of the main kind of theme. So let's see. If you have seen live sports, this includes Little League, you know, being a spectator of any type of sport, put in $1. If you've seen live music since that time, doesn't matter the scenario, but if you've seen it live, put in $1 from that end. If you've been on a plane, that should count from that end. If you've been out of state, if you've been out of the country, I don't know how many people have from that end. If you didn't watch any of the Avs, Rockies, or Nuggets play, you should definitely put in $1 from that end. Was a good kind of weird season in between that time. If you had a hard time finding parking today, for those who came in here, you should put in $1. If you've gotten a haircut, if this is your first time in a hotel since March 2nd, you should put in $1. And finally, if you haven't had to see a doctor, dentist won't count from this end, but if you've not seen a doctor on that end, you should put in $1 as well. I think, Bob, you have a happy note. I don't know if anyone else has happy notes as well.
Very small. Please come to Mike.
Oh.
No, you can hear. No, they can't hear you. My bass is Mark Ludy. He came and talked to us.
Sir, you got to talk into the microphone.
The illustrator guy that came and talked. He does illustration for kids' books and stuff. You can go online and buy cool masks. For those that can go back a ways, I'm so happy to see cold cuts came back. That's it. And I think they're going to be around a while.
Thank you, Bob. And thank you, Deems, for the poll results and also for getting us restored on our fines in person. I just have a couple of other announcements. In the weekly update, I think you saw that we did get the socially distanced social rescheduled thanks to Bruce's efforts. Bruce has worked really hard to put this together, and Margie Yoder is also working on the refreshments for us. But it is going to be on October 1st from 5 to 7 p.m. at the gardens at Spring Creek. So, and if you want to come early and help set up, we'll take that help as well. But we look forward to seeing you on September 1st. Just go to the website like you did before and make your reservation. If you already previously made one for the originally scheduled event, I believe that one is still in and still good. But if you now, because of the change in date, can come, please go register. We do have a limit of 50 people that can come to that event. Let's see. The other thing that I want, yes, Janet. Sure. So Also, if you're interested in the year-long student exchange, please send Janet a note. If you know of anybody who might be, we are going to resume the year-long exchange for the 2021-2022 year. But those interviews are happening yet this month from our club. And then the district interviews will be in October. So we really would like to send a student who might be willing to have a little different adventure to go out. Rotary is taking every precautions that they can to make sure students are safe. And so please do, if you know of anybody who'd like to participate, but please contact Janet. Also, Bill Hart asked me to make a quick announcement just as a reminder to help support our Rotary Charitable Foundation, which then provides, through that foundation, we provide scholarships to participants in Project Self-Sufficiency. But anytime you buy something on Amazon, how many of you have ordered through Amazon? Yeah, well, they kind of have, I like to shop local, but occasionally that's just where I have to go. So if you do go to Amazon, you can donate to our foundation. We'll get 1% of your purchase. So please sign up for that. And are there any other announcements that I've missed? Let me also at this time real quickly before I introduce our speaker, I really want to give a very sincere thanks to Bruce and Carl. It's really their efforts that have enabled us to meet here today. And they've worked very hard with the Marriott to make this happen. We had to submit the variance request to the county. It's in our name as an organization. And Bruce did a lot of that legwork and work for us. So, and Carl is making it happen so that we can have a meeting with all of our Zoom participants who are not yet able to join us in person, either because of our space limits or because of their own vulnerabilities. So Carl, I really appreciate all the work that you've done. And Steve, thank you so much. All right, well, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. JD is off somewhere doing something fun, I think. But Bob Schaefer is going to talk with us today about public education amid a pandemic. Many of you do know Bob, but just for those of you who don't, Bob is the headmaster today at Liberty Common School for grades K through 12, which is a charter school in our district. It's ranked among Colorado's top performing primary and secondary academic institutions. He has been chairman of the leadership program of the Rockies, a nonprofit corporation providing economic education and civic leadership in Colorado. He also serves on the board of trustees of the G.K. Chesterton of St. John Paul II Catholic High School as board secretary, and on the advisory council of the Millennial Policy Foundation. He has a very long resume, but Bob is also a prior state senator, as well as our congressional representative for the 4th District. So we're delighted to have you with us, Bob. Please join me in welcoming Bob Schaefer.
Thank you, Karen. Congratulations on the new duties and responsibilities. You rang the bell with expertise. If you hadn't mentioned that you were new to it, I wouldn't have known. So, well, good afternoon, everyone, and it's fun to be back, and I'll try to speak as forcefully as I can through the mask so that hopefully, give me a thumbs up, everybody. You can hear okay on Zoom? All right, good. I got my bearings, so I'm looking in the right direction, right? Okay, got it. Well, so JD Murphy got a hold of me and asked to come by, said that there had been some previous discussion at a previous meeting just about education in, I guess, in town, and what the district and maybe other schools were doing with respect to opening up in the face of various government restrictions on what public facilities can do and how individuals must dress in order to be together. And so, and he had heard, as maybe you have as well, that there are a few schools in the Poudre School, well, 2 schools in the Poudre School District that are open and operating, and those are 2 of the charters. There are 5 charters, but 2 of them are open. 2 charters sponsored by the district, or they're chartered by the district. There are more charters in town. Some are authorized under the state. So our school is open. It's the largest Poudre School District school that is open, kindergarten through 12th grade. So that's about 1,200 students spread across those 13 grades. And we opened on time and opened, did I break something? Okay. No, we opened on time and right on schedule. But in order to do that, we had to take a lot of heroic actions in order to get our school ready. And we did that in cooperation with the Larimer County Health Department, meeting twice a week by Zoom, sometimes some site visits and so on. So I'll get into that. Here's a couple statements I want to make by way of background and premise to any discussion about education, and especially public education. And the first is what at our school we call, Greg knows this, the universal truth of public education, and that is that it is the right and responsibility of parents to direct the education and upbringing of their children. It's important to understand that context and that relationship because it in the vast majority of public policy discussions about public education, that statement is abandoned. That notion that parents are responsible for educating their kids and no one else. Because so many schools, so many states, as a matter of fact, have taken on the responsibility of being parents for the sake of educating children, and deferring entirely to committees and panels of experts to determine what a child should learn, how a child should learn, where a child should learn, who should teach a child, and so on and so forth. And so we, at our school, to the extent that the school's pretty successful, and it is really predicated on that really simple statement and a general notion, which seems simple, but the reality is it's kind of revolutionary to reinstate a timeless principle in public education. So let me say it again. It is the right and responsibility of parents to direct the education and upbringing of their children. And so I want you to think about that as we discuss just what either options that certain parents have embraced, or to the extent that there are lots of parents in Colorado right now that are upset and frustrated, and they are, about how they're being told they must educate their child. And in all cases, whether it's educating during a pandemic or whether it's just choosing the right curriculum for your child to best address the ambitions you might have for your family or your hopes and aspirations that you live out through your children, that you as parents are in the driver's seat in terms of making the best suggestions and solutions and choices as to how a child ought to be educated. Now, everybody says, when I say this, often I bring a slide presentation, and that's the first slide. It's the right and responsibility of parents to direct the education and upbringing of the children. I'll point to it and ask, how many people agree with that? And everybody raises their hands, and because you want to agree with that. But the reality is, once education decisions start to become political, to the extent that we defer a certain amount of community judgment to a political board, and then we allow them to extract our earnings and pay for it, and spend our money on us. Well, politics tends to cause people to forget the premise. And So to the extent our school is successful, it is because we focus on it quite a lot. And we understand what I think is the proper context of a public school, and that is, as a school headmaster, the person who runs a school, and all the people who work there, it is not our job to educate students. Right? This sounds radical. It is our job to assist parents in educating their students. And just stating that relationship and understanding that and codifying it in our school's policies and procedures changes quite a lot about the dynamics of a school. And I think resets a proper relationship that has to occur. It just has to be present for great education to take place. Our parents elect from among themselves 7 people, volunteers, to serve on our board, and those board members, in representation of the parents of 1,200 kids, are my boss. And so at our board meetings, we have one Thursday night. You're always welcome to attend if they're open to the public. I get asked, I won't say hard questions, but pointed questions that I'm used to answering after 10 years. And which are essentially, are you being efficient and effective with the dollars that we're spending? Are you producing the greatest amount of educational growth for the lowest cost you possibly can, and low cost, high quality, and convenience is another aspect of it as well. And so we get asked 100 questions every month at a board meeting that really center around some of those questions. So when the pandemic starts creeping its way from China through the rest of the world and comes to the United States back in February or March last year, our parents on our board just read newspapers and watch news like everybody else does. And so at the next board meeting, they said, well, what are we going to do at our school if it turns out that there is a pandemic someday? And the answer at the time was, we had a few articles here and there way back then, but the directive was pretty clear. Be prepared for all contingencies associated with educating our kids. And why? Well, because these are parents directing the education and upbringing of their children. And they want to play a primary role, and it is their right to do it, play a primary role in making sure that at least when it comes to their kids, the best options are going to be available. So with that as an understanding of our relationship and a directive, we charted a path forward. Now, by way of contrast, I want to express a little sympathy, just a little sympathy, for others who operate in other organizations. Because our teachers at our school are hired as professionals, legitimate professionals, meaning when I need a new history instructor, one, I don't have to rely on a teacher license. I can find a history professor at a community college, which is one of the most recent ones we hired, a professor at a community college who has been frustrated after 4 or 5 years with all the students coming into his classroom who have been poorly taught in 7th through 12th grade. And that person just developed a passion for wanting to go back to the right place and teach it properly so that at least the kids that he's teaching are prepared for community college level history. And so I can hire that guy. But in many other places, in fact, almost all other places here in northern Colorado, that guy's too incompetent to teach because he doesn't have permission, he hasn't paid for permission from the state, teacher license, in order to transfer knowledge from one generation to the next with excellence. I can just bring that person in. If I need a chemistry instructor, I can hire a chemist. If I need a French instructor, I can hire somebody who maybe has French as a foreign as a primary language. Our Spanish teacher, for example, is from Chile and taught English in Chile, and then comes to the United States and is an excellent Spanish teacher, but I have no requirement that I have to get the state's permission to allow that instructor to be in our classroom. So so I can hire teachers on a professional basis, and then here's the best part. The best part from a child's perspective. is that in order to get that great teacher to come in the front door, if I were in the school district, I'd have to, let's go back to the example of the college professor who wants to teach high school. I would have to hire that teacher at a salary level that is established by a formula and placed on a grid. As that expert instructor enters public education, that individual comes in at the bottom scale because he's new to the district and to public education, and or toward the bottom. Maybe they can accommodate or consider his PhD or something else, but he's going to be near the bottom of that scale. And I can negotiate with that individual and ask the question, what's it going to take to get you to move from Florida to Fort Collins to take this job? And he'll throw out a figure. I do, I'm a good negotiator. Gee, I work at a lowly public school and I don't have the cash to quite pay for that. I sure would love to pay you that because I think you're worth it, but I can do a little bit, just a little bit under that. And we go back and forth until he says, yeah, I'll do that. And I have a figure that I can live with. And we do the handshake. And that individual has just negotiated professional wages on a voluntary basis based on what is a win for him and based on what is a win for my organization, institution, students, and families. And I feel sorry for all other principals in town, except for a few other charter schools who are unable to do that because there are rules that they have that prevent them from treating their teachers like real professionals. And those rules are instituted in every case based on coercion and based on pressure from a teacher union. And so that is the first distinction, is when we discuss at my school what is in the best interest of our students, that is a conversation that takes place at a superficial level in regular public schools. Because the real question is, what do we need to do to make the union happy and satisfy the union so that the teachers will still come to work and not go on strike? And so that's a whole dynamic that is foreign to a professional education organization like the one I run. And so I have sympathy for those administrators who are trying to put the best interests of their students first, but have some competing interests that are very powerful and that take place and that can disrupt in a very costly way plans that a school, common sense plans that a school might imagine for opening up. And so you've seen this debate all up and down the Front Range because the tolerance risk, or the risk tolerance is different for every individual. Karen just explained to us, gave us a good reason why her tolerance for risk is lower than it is for me, for example. And that's very rational in a society where we all live together and try to cooperate together. So at my school, we can accommodate all these risk tolerances. No one's forced to go to the school. As a Poudre School District school, we provide options for lots of families. And from an instructor standpoint, I don't have to treat them all the same. I have one instructor who came and said, I have a risk issue that, she didn't need to explain it in detail to me. All she has to do is tell me I've got a concern. And we work with that one individual in order to create a work environment that is satisfactory for her and satisfactory for the organization. I didn't have to go through her union boss or her representative. I didn't have to accommodate her in a way that applied to everyone else, whether they need it or not. I could deal with my individual instructors in a way that results in a win-win outcome for everybody who works in the school by choice and all the families who send their children to the school by choice. So we started back in March when all schools were ordered to shut down. We did, and went 100% online. Converted our classroom instruction strategy to online over spring break. Everybody showed up, everybody who was necessary to pull that off, gave up their spring break, stayed at the school, and then we missed 2 school days, basically for training, so that on Wednesday after spring break, we were teaching 100% online. And I would contrast that with most of public education in Colorado lost 2 weeks extended spring break, and then another week after that to get the technology in place. 2 days versus 2 weeks. Why? Professional organization, different set of motivations. We know who we're serving, and they hold us accountable directly. And we just want to run a great institution. So that's what people do when they're part of a leadership organization like I want ours to be, and like it is. All right, so summer comes along. We did the virtual, we waited till the middle of summer so we didn't have to do the virtual graduation, but we did a ceremony out on a soccer field. And have been planning ever since to get the school open. I'll try to be brief about some of the things we've done in cooperation with the county. We received, as all schools do, some federal funds to assist through the CARES Act, it's called, to assist schools in adapting to pandemic education. As a charter school, those dollars flow on a per pupil basis right to my school. So we received about $400,000 to $500,000 in federal funds to prepare our school for 1,200 kids. Same prorated share as all others, as the district receives for all other students. The difference is those dollars flowed right to our institution. And I'm sad to say that that did not happen in most public schools. It did not happen in the Poudre School District. We've got a former teacher who is now an assistant principal at a neighborhood elementary school. And so keep in mind, for 1,200 kids, we received a little over $400,000 in assistance. His school received $3,000. Now, where did that money go? I can't answer that. I just know it didn't get to his school on a per pupil basis like it does at mine and at the other charter schools. So here's what we did with that. We also redirected some other funds. I mean, it was kind of hard. I had to lay off a few employees. The state budget allowed for a 0.5% reduction. I'm sorry, a 5% reduction in funds year over year. So I'm dealing with fewer dollars already, meaning my teachers, for the most part, got either no raises, some reductions, and in a few exemplary cases, nice increases, because I'm able to pay my instructors based on their performance. I don't have the union grid that I have to work with. So scrimping and saving, we saved a lot of money, and then we've got these federal funds. Here's what we did. We installed wraparound desk masks, polycarbonate shielding that fits to the desk, about 270 degree coverage around each child's face and about a foot above their mouth. Goes around every desk. 1,120 copies of those.
You know things can change.
I don't know. It's just the musical interlude in the education discussion. So there we have it. So we installed something called needlepoint bipolar ionization in our air handling system. So this ionizes the air. This is what happens in your hospital and in some surgery rooms, and it causes little particles to glom onto one another, and they either sink into the carpet or they get better chance that when they get sucked up into the ventilation system, you can trap them. So the effectiveness on a virus the size of a COVID virus is we did pre-testing, post-testing, and then just the technology itself has been tested for forever, I guess, because we had no problem finding and verifying the specs on this. So it's about 96% of particles the size of COVID can be, when they, through this ionization process, can be extracted from the air. So we've got cleaner air. We increase the circulation of fresh air, the mix into our handling system, and increase the circulation in every building as well. We redesigned our schedule so that kids have longer passing periods so we can spread them out, release them from class in waves. And we tried experimenting with single direction hallways. That experiment didn't last, created bottlenecks. So we went back. But the point is we can try. You know, we try different things that are intended to spread things out. The drop off in the morning is now staggered. The pickup in the afternoon is staggered, so there's no It minimizes the collection of students at our elementary school. When kids go out for recess, they maintain their cohort. So Mrs. Jones' third grade class, for example, stays together all day. Whereas before they went to the art room, they went to the music room, they had recess out together with all the other third graders. Now they're all together all day long. And the advantage for this from a health standpoint is if we get a positive case, the health department's going to call and say, where does Johnny sit? And we can say he sits in that classroom, in that room, he sits in seat number 18, and here are the students who are within 6 feet of that location, and it makes the contact tracing very easy. And I would ask you just to contrast this from a public health standpoint of sending kids to school for a day and then sending them somewhere for a day where you don't know where they are. You don't know if parents are going to send their kids to childcare centers. They're going to send them to do daytime activities. They're going to send them to a pod of other kids. You really have no idea where those kids are. I can tell you where every kid in my school is every minute of the day for 5 days a week. And this is something the health department likes and wants to see occurring. What else do we do? We got the mask. You know, it takes a little while to get little third graders to remember the masks, the 6 foot distance. I'm convinced that there's no child under the younger than 8th grade, let's say, that knows what 6 feet is. They don't know. You've got to stand over and shepherd them like, I like the way you're keeping your 6 foot distance, and then they try to figure that out. And so it does take a lot of manpower that way, and a lot of assistance. And then we're scrubbing down and wiping down everything. We got all the chemicals that we've been advised to buy, extra maintenance staff to apply it all in the proper doses in the right places after the right circumstances. Some surfaces get wiped down every class period. Some get wiped down every day, just kind of depends. We got these ultraviolet wands and robots that expose like keypads, get the ultraviolet light that kills the thing. So 2 hours a night, these things are hovering over desks, and then the maintenance guys are moving those around all night long. What else? Electrostatic sprayers. Not so magnificent, but the applicators are kind of expensive. They look like, what's that movie with the Ghostbusters? You remember this thing? It looks like that. Guys walking around with the Ghostbuster gun, spraying down stuff, and it's kind of cool. If you don't know what that means, it's an electrostatic spray. There's charged particles in the sanitizing chemical, and it just wraps around an object and it adheres to everything and kills whatever happens that might be on it. Yeah, we do that with all of our buses as well. We've got buses that shuttle our kids between 2 campuses. So the point is we spent a lot of money, a lot of resources, and a lot of adaptation, shifting staff, repurposing staff to make sure we accommodate all this. There's all kind of reporting processes so that we've educated our community about when not to send your child to school. If they have certain symptoms, there's minor ones according to the county and major ones according to the county. One, if it goes away within 24 hours, well, you can bring your kid back to school, and others, you have to go get a verified negative test or alternative diagnosis before a child can come back to school. And we so far, after over a month of having our kids back in school, 1,200 kids, about 100 employees, no cases so far. So here's the point of that, and I'll kind of make my final point here, and that is just getting that 1 month back of in-class instruction is worth all the expense and all of the effort, because there is no substitute for a good curriculum being delivered in a classroom by a live person who knows that child. You can try to, as we did and others, to flip that so that the classroom instruction is being delivered remotely on a camera. Oh, and the other thing is if anybody wants to sign their kid up to monitor their classroom from home, we've got a camera set up just like this, and we've got about 5% of our student population that is at home. It's not as good. We don't sell it or promote it or promise that it will be as good. But parents are responsible for making these decisions. To the extent their children might be falling behind, that is a parent's responsibility to make sure that they're working with that technology. And so I forgot about that. But the premise, the point I would like to make is that converting a classroom strategy to a remote online platform, it can be done. It is not as good. In fact, it's not close. And this is what we're experiencing throughout the country that ought to be of great concern for every American as we train up and prepare the next generation of corporate leaders, pastors, rabbis, all the community leaders that a republic relies on. Is our kids are becoming, they are already academic casualties of bad decisions piled on top of what has already plagued our education system, and that is a lack of professionalism, not because, just as a result of the system, not because people are bad, and then a curriculum that has been letting American citizens down for way too long. A good place to go to summarize is two Saturdays ago, in the weekend edition of Wall Street Journal, there was this really great interview by Naomi Schaefer Riley, no relationship, with E.D. Hirsch. E.D. Hirsch is 92 years old. He is one of the nation's foremost educators or leaders in education strategies and policies. He is the author of the curriculum we gravitated to at my school, and as well as the philosophy and strategy. And he covers many of the things I just said are informed and restated by him in this nice article. The reason the article is there is because he's just published another book. This has got to be about 40 or 50 for him on education strategies and tactics. And it is focused on what Americans ought to know in order to sustain a republic. And he relates it to the civil unrest we see in society today, of people being educated at different levels and different settings. An urban education is very different than a suburban education, which is very different than a rural education. And this is a problem from the standpoint of having Americans who can carry on a single conversation about national matters or local leaders. And it undermines the effort that goes all the way back to America's founders, and that is to create an American ethnicity that is strengthened and valued and informed by immigrants from all around the world. To the extent that in recent years, many people from other places have tried to, retaining one's culture is a great thing and a beautiful thing, but if it comes at the expense of national goals, objectives, national knowledge about our country, precise language, the ability to relate to the same stories, and the ability to understand those stories with a common language, to the extent that those things get undermined, then isolating oneself or one's culture or one's people of their own race into their own unique brand of an education is counterintuitive to an American strategy that we have that America had embraced up until about 1910 or 1920. So with that, that's how you can educate during a pandemic. To the extent that in-class education is valuable, we feel like after 1 month, our students have already received the value of all the investments that we've made within our school. And it's still hard. It is not an easy thing, but when you're motivated like our parents are to make sure that when it comes to their kids, they're receiving the highest quality at the most reasonable price and at a level of convenience that meets their expectations, we can still run a great school, and we can adapt, improvise, overcome, and love like a great school should. So let me stop. If I've exceeded my time, then I won't answer questions. If you give me a minute, then I'll follow your lead, Madam President.
No, we do have time for a couple of questions.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that people did have time for that.
Sure.
And I know you probably have some via chat as well.
So Diane, did you want to go ahead and ask your question? Take yourself off mute.
Okay. I was curious that in addition to the revenue that you get from the state, are students required to pay tuition?
No Poudre School District school charges tuition. That's in fact against the law.
Okay, okay.
It's nice to see you again.
Thanks. Good to see you.
And just so everybody knows, I have my wife says I have a angry resting face, but I have been smiling the whole time behind this mask.
As I am.
Just so you know how friendly I
Yes.
am. All right, go ahead.
During all this, but even beforehand, homeschooling has increased.
Yes.
Charter schools have increased. Is there an uptick of schools across the country that are following this same philosophy?
Yes. Yeah. Where they're allowed, every state law, or well, state laws are similar. It's the executive orders that vary from state to state. And so, that's why I think we can confidently say that many decisions made surrounding how schools are going to operate during a pandemic are political and not so much motivated by sound public health sense. And so, I think that's true here in our community and in our county, in our school district. And it's not unique, and that's not a criticism. That's the way it is throughout the country right now. And so parents tend to apply common sense and reason when it comes to their kids. And so if you can't educate your students well because of irrational rules, then lots of parents throughout the country are doing the right thing, taking matters into their own hands. The pandemic is kind of a disruption in the education marketplace. It's no fun when you're trying to deliver the service, but standing back, what's in the best interest of students and families? Yeah, I think this disruption is very, very helpful. It is causing families to ask the right questions about where their money's going, what is the quality that they expect. Think about the opposite corollary here, and that is, let's suppose you shut down a school for a quarter and don't teach, and your school says, our kids are going to do just fine. Really? 2.5 months they haven't been in school, and school people are going to say that's okay? If it is, what on earth have they been doing with that time beforehand? How could it possibly be okay? So those are good questions that parents are asking. And yes, you're right. So we've got several charter schools. Some were struggling a year ago. They're all full now in Fort Collins. There is a brand new charter school. Ascent Classical started they've got a few charter schools throughout the state. They're headquartered out of Golden, I think. And so they opened up a new school on Drake and Shields, that church there. I don't remember the name of the church, but you see the signs when you drive by Ascent Classical School. They're full. Day one, they were full. As was mentioned in the introduction, I'm on the board of a new startup Catholic private high school over in Windsor that hopes to serve all of northern Colorado. We just opened up with our freshman and sophomore class. It's not a big school, but it's full. We've got a waiting list in year one of a private school where you have to pay to go there and transport your kids a good distance if you want them in. So, and homeschooling is up. There's a phenomenon called education pods. Some of you heard about this. These are kids who are at home in a neighborhood, let's say, and you look out your window on a Tuesday at 10 o'clock, and there's the neighborhood kids not at school. So the moms usually get together and suggest, well, how about we pitch in and hire a professional tutor to come in and make sure that they're helping our kids and give them some support they need, whether it's directly or just facilitating the online education that they're receiving. And so these pods are springing up all over the place. Interesting other thing that's going on right now for the schools that are open, when we are looking for substitute teachers, the people we used to call are now busy because they are tutoring pods all over the place. And so that's an interesting phenomenon that I think is good. So yeah, you're seeing a lot of people take matters in their own hands because deep down, they all know that children are suffering. I use the word academic casualties because we are creating academic casualties all across the land right now. If it were all necessary as a result, in order to achieve some public health goals, maybe that's just the price we have to pay, but it's not. I'd say most of the decisions that are being made about education right now are purely political, often financial, usually negotiating with teachers' unions to figure out what teachers can be asked to do. Just a word of fairness. The vast majority of teachers want to be in school teaching. But if they're part of the union, there's a minority of their colleagues within the union that usually persuade the union boss to take a position that says, if you make my teacher work, then we're going on strike. And that threat has been made up and down the Front Range of Colorado with great effect.
Perhaps our last question. Artie, did you want to ask your question? Take yourself off mute.
Yeah. Hey, hi, Bob.
Hello.
This is Art Bavoso. Hey, Bob, can you speak more about your comments related to certain immigrant cultures that you said isolate their brand as it relates to the education area?
Yeah, I can. There's, and Hirsch, this is what, I mentioned that in relationship to Hirsch's comments here, and that is, yeah, and there is a kind of a, I don't want to say modern, because I'd say it's been around since the 60s, a notion that if a student immigrates here from Mexico, let's say, that in order for that child to receive a good education and learn the things that they need to know in an American culture, that they ought to be reading books, studying artists that are written by somebody who's Mexican or performed by somebody who is of similar, of their same descent. That a child will be inclined to learn better, learn more, maybe assign more credibility to an author or a lecturer or an artist if they are of the same culture. And so what tends to undermine the quality of the lesson that needs to be learned is a higher attention to who's teaching it, what kind of, what the author looks like, where they come from, and so on. And so it is a separation of the core elements of knowledge and from cultural similarity and familiarity. And so, all right, so that can take place in a classroom just for the reasons I just described. But what more often is occurring that I think gets Hirsch's attention is when entire school districts will abandon a history book because they want to replace it with a history book that where there's more emphasis applied to one culture, a culture that is of the students, or maybe a majority of the students in a classroom. And where that occurs, I mean, almost by definition of what I just described, there is a multicultural set of goals associated with the lesson rather than the clarity of literature, let's say, the clarity of literature, of language, or of the material itself, whether that aspect of history is accurate in the first place. And so that is what Hirsch discusses in all of his books, by the way. It's he points this out in the editorial that I very directly in the editorial. He quotes Noah Webster, and Noah Webster is the first one who used this term of Americans, now that we have an independent country, ought to be focused on creating an American ethnicity, the melting pot, and an American ethnicity, not a bunch of metals that come together and maintain their, for long periods of time, maintain their individual integrity, but which actually melt together. And that's what Hirsch means, and I agree with it, by the way. That's what Hirsch means, and I think history has shown is on an American context, or the same in analyzing the collapse of other republics or nations throughout history. There is a correlation between a failure of a people to educate their citizens to the extent necessary to maintain their republic, their democracy, whatever, and those that fail to do a good job at it. And Hirsch believes that we are on the wrong track. There are too many examples of lessons that are oriented toward a specific ethnicity and not a particularly American one.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
I apologize, but I know you all have things to get back to. And Bob, thank you so much for speaking with us today. We really appreciate it. We will make a donation in your name to the Book Trust. We sponsor a classroom at Putnam Elementary for students to receive reading materials to encourage their love of reading. So thank you for your presentation. Good food for thought. Guests, I want to thank you for coming. Please come back and see us. Again, thank you, Teaching Tree and La Familia, for the work that you do for our young people. So important. While we don't always agree on maybe the best way to support our young people, I think we all have at our hearts a desire to help them. So thank you. Andrea, I want to, or I'm sorry, not Andrea. Erica, thank you for your inspiration. It was really timely. I know we're all feeling like this is becoming a drag, but I really appreciate the suggestions for ways in which we can mix it up for ourselves and come out on the other side a better person for it. Vince, thank you for your joke. 1 to 130, I wish it stopped there. I want to thank you, Deems, for fines today. Appreciate that. Secretary Linda and Ruth, and soon to be Treasurer Larry, thank you for all that you do for our club in terms of helping us still strive and be a great business as well as a good public service entity. Our next meeting is September 29th. We will be doing this next meeting via Zoom. We will sort of, as a board and others, just get together and see how often we might continue in-person meetings combined with Zoom. So we'll be back to you on that. But at our next meeting, Greg Young, who is an author, is going to talk about the true story that inspired the Tom Clancy's The Hunt for Red October. So that should be fun. Our evening group meets on September 29th. Just a reminder that you can view any of our past programs on YouTube if you missed something and you want to catch up. And just a reminder to please buy your foodie and nail trail cards so that we continue to provide great support for our nonprofits in our community. With that, our meeting is adjourned.